Jamie here, Jamie here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, October 14th, 9:16 on this fine morning talk. Really quick about market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P futures in the red. We're actually hitting highs overnight about 10 o'clock in the overnight hours. SPY was at 665 and then just slowly start to melt lower midnight. And then Europe open just downhill from there. And next thing you know, you wake up, it's 4 a.m. and the futures down over 1% on the SPY. NASDAQ futures off, just 1.1%. On the heels of Friday's sell-off. So you thought, okay, I wouldn't say we're out of the woods, but you thought maybe yesterday's action where we had the big gap and then the market held its ground throughout the day and kind of like a narrow trading range. So consolidation, I thought, hey, okay, maybe we're somewhat out of the woods. Markets can continue to head higher into the end of the week. And then we get this today. And I always say the thing that worries me the most about sell-offs are the ones that don't have a name. There's no tariff related news, no China related news, no any headline. And you could make the case, and you'll read headlines this morning. Futures are down. They say, "Oh, futures down," as folks wait for bank earnings. And I'm like, I don't think bank earnings are as important this quarter as it has been in the past, right? To me, it's all about the AI semi space. It's going to be about ASML tomorrow, Taiwan Semiconductor Thursday morning, and then some of the other names as they come out. Obviously, the mega cap, the Metas, the Microsofts, Nvidia, of course. So it's funny to just create the headline to rationalize the move, which again, I mean, you can make the case that it was about China and the US, but nothing really changed overnight besides the Nikkei selling off. I think it was off over 2%. Concerns over there. Their surprise election where more of a liberal candidate got elected. I guess there's some concern there, but I don't think that's what's pulling the market here this morning. So my worry is at some point we're going to wake up and it'll be 2, 3, 4, 5% to the downside for no reason. And it's like today and even this morning, Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, all the banks reported decent earnings, right? If you could make a scenario for markets to continue to hold their ground or head higher, you would say, okay, the bank earnings this morning set the stage for that. So it's kind of like a non-event, but then you have Jamie Dimon saying that, what do you say, this 20-year run has caused some bubble in some areas, right? And it seemed like bubble is a word that just keeps coming up and coming up. And, that whatever you want to put, some folks make the joke that, a bubble is what people call a market that they've missed out on, right? They missed out on a run. You can make the references. Jamie Dimon, a couple of years ago, talking about Bitcoin. I mean, how many thousands of percent was that ago when he called Bitcoin trash or fraud, whatever he called it? So, I'm not saying to dismiss his comments, but we'll have to see how everything plays out this week. Not the kind of action here I wanted to see this morning at the open, but maybe hold the ground 658 on the SPY. That's a big spot I'll be watching. That's my trend line I drew in a couple of days ago. If we can hold that, maybe we can find some footing and then melt into the end of the week. Other events here today. Fed Chair Powell speaks at some economic conference in Philadelphia. I think that's at 12:20. Last comments ahead of the Fed meeting next week. I don't know if he's going to say anything earth-shattering, but certainly will be interesting to hear some commentary around the blackout. I wouldn't even call it the blackout here, the government shutdown causing all this data to be pushed back. So how's that going to impact what the Fed does? I'm sure maybe he'll make some comments there, but something to certainly be aware of. And then we have the AI world. So Larry Ellison does his keynote speech. I think it's 4:30 Eastern time. So I don't know if Oracle's going to come out with any updated numbers today. So I don't know if that'll move the market. So something to be aware of there. And that's that. So the good thing, and until just a little while ago, yields were getting destroyed again. So I mean, I shouldn't say destroyed, but continue to head downward. So if that continues, I think it could be the next catalyst marks. All right, so that's kind of the overall market. I don't even know why I don't have my yields up here. I thought I had the chart, but let me just talk quick about some individual names. This morning, yesterday morning, markets were ramping. Oracle was breaking over 300 again into the mid 303, 304. I looked at the premiums and I figured if there's some kind of update with guidance or some other catalyst, you can start to make the case that Oracle heads back to its 345 level, hit right after earnings. Not only that, maybe to do a trade for premium build if there was follow through yesterday in the morning into the afternoon. Excuse me. So I went and got some spec calls on Oracle with the premise to lock some in to cover costs and ride the rest. Sure enough, 310 hits, can't break through, down to 309 and tries again, can't break through. Didn't want to see the premiums get destroyed, so I closed those spec lottos out for a small loss. I'll be watching again here today. I don't know if I'm going to nibble or dabble, but if it does show signs that, hey, maybe it's going to start to break that 310 handle, maybe I'll look for some lottos. And the play would be intraday, right? Get some spec lottos. Maybe I can get the 335s or 340s and lock some in on the way up to cover costs, ride the rest, or just close them out before the end of the day. So that would be the trade there. So that's Oracle. And then, on the flip side, I was mentioning yesterday afternoon, I always say, never wrong, just never, never wrong, just early. Arista Networks, there was news out yesterday. I guess Meta and someone else is not going to use the Arista Networks, their switches. So you saw Arista right off the bat, just taking on the chin all the way under 150. And I was looking at some spec puts and the 144s. I'd have to go check and see what I said on the rant. I think they were like 60 or 70 cents. Tried to get some, and then the spreads went bonkers, couldn't get filled. Sure enough, here it is at 142 in the pre-market. Um, I put on the watch list. There's a basket of names I'm going to be watching, especially if the market has some weakness. I wouldn't call them bubble-related names, but names that probably will have some opportunity for some massive moves to the downside. The SanDisk, the Seagate, Arista Networks. So definitely a name I continue to look for opportunities to get the puts. I had the puts twice last week on Arista. Why doesn't that kind of news come out when I have the puts last week? It's the market gods, right? All right, so that's Arista. Not much here to mention on Serve Robotics, up 10% yesterday, recouping some of Friday's losses and Thursday's reversal. It's going to be volatile, and you can see it's going to be a bumpy ride. So, like I keep saying, I'm not going to add any more positions. When I get an opportunity, I'll lock some of the March strikes in. Those are up 50%. They were close to 100% on Thursday, but I didn't get a chance to close those out. You know the story here. 87% increase in the short interest since April. Yeah, so that's Serve Robotics. And then NKLR, I was mentioning the rant yesterday afternoon. Thank you, J-Rock, for pointing this out. If there's signs, and there's been all these different cases you can make over the years of sectors that have just been on a tear. And you can make the case now with the nuclear side. You see OKLO yesterday. I was doing on a rant yesterday. But here's a name just went SPAC, right? So just recently traded, I think October 10th. Stock's up 60%, or it was when I got the calls. It's a nuclear play, right? Pre-revenue, similar to the OKLO. So you can make the case that it gets some FOMO, right? People discover it just for any other reason than maybe people who are in OKLO take some profits and roll into this, or people just speculate that, hey, maybe it goes on a monster tear. It's only a $500 million market cap. What's that, 20? And OKLO is 20 times that with similar profiles. So Wayne got those spec lottos. Sure enough, it starts spiking within 20 minutes, locks them in for over 100%, held the rest. It was over 19 overnight, and this morning found pressure down to 17 and bouncing around. It's one of those names. It could be over 20 today, or it could be back under 15. So I'll be quick to pull the trigger on the rest of them at the open. The thing is, only strikes up to $25. So to try to get some spec lottos, because they won't really be lottos, going to be tough. And I'm not going to pay $3 for a $25 November call on a name that really, there's no fundamentals or underlying story that could really validate the value. Couldn't really make a case where you can make a case that's a very speculative name, right? That maybe it does get some FOMO, but not enough for me to get convicted and getting some calls. So I'll probably just sit on the sidelines once I get out of those October 20s. But if they do add some higher strikes tomorrow, might be an interesting name going forward. So that's NKLR. JOBY, nice ascending channel, right? And, holding the bottom side of it. Of course, I would love to see it somewhere in the middle. Still looking for some more November strikes. Probably the November 24, 25 is probably going to wait for 17 to break and hold. Still watching Reddit and Duolingo. Reddit, I mean, over the last couple of days, it's probably its tightest trading ranges it's had in recent memory. I don't know if it's a good thing if it once it breaks out. It's just, is it going to break out to the upside or downside? Of course, I'm biased to the upside. So still looking for calls. I think it'll be like the third week in a row. I'm going to try some Reddit lottos. They paid out last week in regards to being able to lock some in to cover costs and then it just didn't have follow through. So one of these moves will have follow through. And then last but not least here, I wouldn't call last but not least, HPQ, right? I kind of wrote the calls off on Friday, the big sell-off, and then boom, yesterday, up 7%. There's news this morning, a partnership or expands Riot Games collaboration. I don't know if that's going to be the spark for it, but I mean, you look at the name, I'm like, it's like it's trading on a different planet. Like you would think if there's a sector that's hot right now with the Dell rally last week, you'd think HPQ would be following in sympathy. It hasn't. So to me, it's one of two things. Maybe it never will, right? And that story's over. Or maybe one of these days, it becomes discovered again. So I think the latter. We'll see what happens here today. If it finds some more bids here, maybe 27.50, that was the big spot. I'm going to look for some more calls, probably the November 30s or 31s for some follow through. And that's that. I'm going to have to number the days. The great circle jerk, right? It continues to rumble on. This morning, just now, OpenAI and Walmart announced a partnership or whatever. And Walmart, hundreds of $1 billion company, massive, was up $4 on that news. It just shows you like the impact. It's almost like these companies are so forced now to have some kind of, you have to have your skin in the game, otherwise you're going to get left behind. Whether you're going to get left behind financially or because of the stock is going to get left behind, right? So it's almost like that's what makes this scary, this current environment. It's like people are forced to make these deals because if you don't, and it's like that's why I was talking about Apple last week. It might make sense to get some crazy Apple strikes at some point because Apple's like the last big cap name to like do something. Right? Anyway, all right. So have a great day, folks. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.